In the quiet town of Brookhaven, something extraordinary was about to unfold, an event so full of raw emotion and sheer resilience that it would change the lives of everyone involved. On a crisp morning, a loving mother Labrador named Daisy ventured into the lush backyard. She shared with her devoted family. Little did she know, a lurking threat awaited her in the tall, dew-kissed grass. A furious snake coiled in the shadows, poised for an attack that would defy all logic and reason. Today, we invite you to witness a story of courage, survival, and the breathtaking power of an unbreakable bond. The sun had just crept over the modest rooftops of Brookhaven, painting the sky with soft streaks of pink and pale yellow. Morning dew shimmered like polished pearls on the broad leaves of the ivy clinging to the old fence. It was early autumn, and the air carried a slight crispness that signaled the turning of the season. The residents of Oakwood Avenue were still emerging from their dreams, lulled by the gentle hum of coffee pots and occasional barking of neighborhood dogs. Inside a cozy single-story home, Daisy, a golden-furred Labrador, stirred from her comfortable bed near the fireplace. She yawned loudly, her jaws parting wide enough to echo with comedic effect. Daisy had always been an affectionate dog, possessing an unwavering love for her family, her human mum, Helena, who was a local elementary school teacher, her human dad, Charles, who worked part-time at the Brookhaven Public Library, and their 9-year-old daughter, Mia, who adored Daisy more than any friend she had at school. A stuffed bunny named Mr. Fluffs was Mia's constant companion, but Daisy was the real heartbeat of the household. It was a Saturday, a day of promise and rest. Mia was still asleep, snuggled beneath a pastel quilt that her grandmother had hand-stitched. Helena was already up and preparing breakfast in the kitchen. The tantalizing aroma of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee drifted throughout the house, waking the senses of both humans and canines alike. Daisy could hardly contain her excitement. She trotted to the kitchen with her tail wagging, nails clicking across the hardwood floor like metronomic beats. Outside in the backyard, a gentle breeze blew through the rows of marigolds and sunflowers that Helena had lovingly planted in the spring. Everything about this morning felt serene, ordinary, and safe. The world of Brookhaven was as calm as a lake at dawn, but life can be deceptive, and fate has a way of changing our stories in the blink of an eye. Daisy could sense something unusual rustling beyond the sliding glass door that led out into the backyard. A faint tension in the air made her ears twitch, but she dismissed it as the mild anxiety she sometimes felt when large crows swooped in to peck at fallen walnuts. She returned her attention to Helena, who was now placing a bowl of fresh water next to her Kibble Pedigree brand, one of Daisy's favorites. The Labrador inhaled a few mouthfuls of food with audible crunches before lapping at the water. Then, without missing a beat, she went back to Helena and pawed at her leg gently, signaling her desire to step outside. The sliding door hissed open. Daisy trotted across the threshold, guided by the bright sunlight and the gentle chirping of sparrows perched on the wooden fence. Helena watched her dog with loving eyes as Daisy sniffed around the yard with an air of curiosity. The smell of moist earth and the faint tang of a neighbor's barbecue marinade from the previous night filled Daisy's nostrils, creating an intoxicating tapestry of scents. A single leaf spiraled down from an old oak tree in the corner of the yard, drifting lazily until it settled upon a patch of grass. Daisy padded over to investigate, her tail wagging. She was living her best doggy life, surrounded by a safe yard and a family that cherished her. No day could be more perfect until everything changed. Just then, Mia burst through the door, still in her pajamas, her hair a tangled mess of dark curls. She giggled as she sprinted toward Daisy, arms flung wide in joyful enthusiasm. Daisy greeted Mia with a gentle nuzzle, tail whipping back and forth in a display of pure canine delight. Helena, drying her hands on a dish towel, stepped outside to watch the pair. It was their morning ritual to bond in the yard. What none of them realized was that an uninvited guest had slithered through a small gap in the fence, a venomous copperhead snake, its mottled scales blending almost perfectly with the fallen leaves. Drawn by the warmth of the early sun and perhaps the presence of small rodents, it had come into the yard with neither invitation nor warning. An uneasy hush seemed to fall over the garden, as if nature itself sensed the impending confrontation. Moments before the unthinkable, Daisy's ears pricked, catching an unfamiliar sound in the grass. She froze. Helena and Mia remained blissfully unaware, laughing together, pointing at the tiny footprints. Daisy's paws made in the soft dirt. The Labrador's hackles rose slightly, a tremor in her body revealing the tension building within. In that instant, the copperhead uncoiled, venom glinting in its eyes, preparing to defend itself from what it perceived as a threat. Daisy's heart hammered in her chest. Despite her gentle nature, an instinct older than domestication told her something was terribly wrong. She took a step forward, placing her body between Mia and the slithering intruder, as if moved by a primal directive to protect her beloved human family. A low growl rumbled in her throat, rare for Daisy, who was usually gentle as a lamb. Helena sensed Daisy's sudden change in demeanor. "Daisy?" she asked, stepping forward. But by then, it was almost too late. The snake struck with lightning speed, fangs bared, connecting with Daisy's foreleg. A surprised yelp tore through the still air, cutting through the morning peace like a siren. Time seemed to freeze as the Labrador recoiled, stumbling backward, fighting waves of pain that surged from the bite wound up into her shoulder. Mia screamed in terror, Helena gasped, and in the confusion, no one initially realized the true danger that had just slithered into their midst. In that fraction of a second, the ordinary day was shattered. Daisy, the devoted mother Labrador, had just been bitten by a furious copperhead, and what would happen next was beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Helena wasted no time. Mia clung to her mother's waist, trembling in shock, tears welling in her eyes. Daisy whimpered in pain, her front leg shaking under the weight of the venom's sting. Helena's first instinct was to get her daughter to safety, so she ushered Mia back into the house, glancing once more at the unwelcome visitor. The copperhead, equally startled by the frenzied commotion, retreated under a thick cluster of shrubbery, its body coiling defensively. Helena slammed the sliding door shut, adrenaline surging through her like a fiery wave. She had read about snake bites in Dog Care Monthly, a magazine she kept around for quick references on canine health. The instructions were clear: don't panic, call a veterinarian immediately, and minimize the dog's movement to slow the spread of venom. Fumbling with her phone, she dialed the emergency number for Brookhaven Animal Hospital, a real place known for its exemplary care and 24-hour emergency services. The line rang once, twice, then a calm voice answered. "Brookhaven Animal Hospital, this is Dr. Ramirez. How can I help you?" Helena's voice quivered, but she maintained as much composure as she could muster. "My dog, my Labrador, was just bitten by a copperhead in our backyard. She's in pain, and I need help right now, Doctor." Ramirez's tone remained steady, grounded in years of experience. "How long ago did the bite occur?" "Not even 5 minutes ago. Please, what do I do?" "Keep her calm. Try to keep her from walking too much. Get her here as soon as you can. Drive carefully but quickly. We have antivenom on hand." Helena nodded, forgetting for a moment that the doctor couldn't see her. "We're on our way." As she hung up the phone, Helena turned to see Mia sobbing. The little girl struggled to remain brave, but the tears came in unstoppable waves. "Is Daisy going to be okay?" she pleaded. Helena crouched down and took Mia by the shoulders. "We're going to do everything we can, sweetheart. Daisy needs us to be strong for her now." They carefully guided Daisy inside, laying her on a thick blanket near the front door. The Labrador panted heavily, beads of saliva forming at the corners of her mouth. A flush of red swelled around the puncture wounds on her leg, a clear sign that venom was entering her bloodstream. Charles, hearing the commotion from the library, he was supposed to be off that day, but had gone in to handle a small backlog of returns, had rushed home when Helena frantically called him. He arrived just in time to see them preparing to load Daisy into the family's old minivan. The emotion etched on his face was raw and unguarded. Daisy was more than just a pet, she was a loyal companion who had been with the family since Mia was only 3 years old. "Let's go," Charles said firmly, opening the back of the van. Together they lifted Daisy as gently as possible, mindful of her wounded leg. Mia climbed into the back seat with her, stroking the Labrador's ears, whispering words of comfort. Helena took the passenger seat while Charles turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and they sped off toward Brookhaven Animal Hospital. En route, time felt thick and distorted. Mia's silent tears soaked into Daisy's fur, and the dog let out an occasional whimper as the venom's grip tightened. The crispness of the autumn day that had been so inviting earlier now felt hostile, as if each passing second was a roll of thunder in a gathering storm. Finally, they arrived at the hospital. Dr. Ramirez and 2 vet technicians were already waiting at the entrance, having prepared an exam room with everything they needed to treat a snakebite. Without missing a beat, the medical team carried Daisy inside, Mia tailing closely behind until Helena gently guided her to a waiting area with large glass windows and comforting pastel artwork on the walls. For Mia, the next hour was a blur of tears and frantic pacing. Charles tried to console her, but the worry in his own eyes made it impossible for him to be the pillar of strength he wanted to be. Helena alternated between sitting with Mia and standing at the glass partition that separated the treatment area from the rest of the hospital. She could see the top of Dr. Ramirez's head, the swirl of frantic activity around Daisy as they administered antivenom and checked her vitals. When Dr. Ramirez finally emerged, his face was solemn but hopeful. "We've managed to give her the antivenom," he said softly. "She's stable for now, but we need to keep her here for observation. Copperhead bites can be serious, but they're rarely fatal with quick treatment. The next few days will be critical. We need to watch for tissue damage, infection, and any complications with her kidneys or blood pressure." Mia, eyes red and puffy, asked the question that had been hanging in the air like a dark cloud. "Is Daisy going to die?" Dr. Ramirez knelt down and looked at her with genuine compassion. "I can't promise anything for certain, young lady, but I will tell you this. Daisy is a strong dog, and she got help very quickly. I'm optimistic about her chances. She's in good hands." The relief that flooded Helena's body was overwhelming. She nearly collapsed against Charles, tears of gratitude mixing with lingering worry. "Doctor." Ramirez excused himself, returning to Daisy's side, and the family was left in a tense vigil. Little did they know, the bite was only the beginning of a series of events that would test every ounce of courage and faith they possessed. For in the days to come, Daisy would exhibit not only remarkable resilience, but also a fierce maternal drive that would lead to an outcome no one could have seen coming. While Daisy remained under close watch at Brookhaven Animal Hospital, life in the family's home shifted dramatically. The emptiness left by Daisy's absence was palpable. Helena found herself glancing toward Daisy's usual sleeping spot by the fireplace, expecting to see a wagging tail, but finding only a neatly folded blanket. Mia attempted to fill her time by drawing pictures of Daisy and the entire family, She taped them on the fridge, believing that a collage of colorful, happy images might somehow channel her hopes into reality. Charles, trying to lighten the mood, cooked comfort meals at home, chicken noodle soup, warm biscuits, and Mia's favorite cheese and broccoli casserole. The usual savory scents hung in the air, but none of it felt right without Daisy's eager nose poking around the kitchen. Even the mailman, who delivered letters daily, inquired about Daisy, having grown fond of her friendly barks and the way she'd stand at the fence to greet him. Each day, they visited the animal hospital. Helena made sure that Mia was present for at least one of these visits, believing it was important for her daughter to see Daisy's progress firsthand. Daisy's leg had swollen considerably in the first 48 hours, and the veterinary team had to treat the wound with additional antibiotics to prevent infection. She lay there with glazed eyes, her usual vibrant energy replaced with exhaustion. Yet whenever she recognized Mia's face, Daisy would muster the tiniest wag of her tail, a silent affirmation that her spirit was still fighting. Dr. Ramirez carefully monitored the dog's condition, running periodic blood tests and administering fluids. He noted Daisy's unbreakable will. "She's weak, but she's stubborn about it in the best possible way," he quipped on the third day. "I've seen dogs give up after a snake bite, lose the will to fight. But Daisy is holding on. She's definitely got something to live for." The unspoken truth, which Dr. Ramirez delicately conveyed to Helena and Charles, was that Daisy had been carrying puppies, an early-stage pregnancy that had not been confirmed until the hospital staff performed an ultrasound. The family had hoped for this, though it was still in the early weeks. Now, given the venom and the toll of the antivenom on her system, there were concerns about the health of the unborn puppies. The news weighed heavily on the entire household. Would Daisy's maternal instinct give her the strength to overcome the venom's damage? One late afternoon, Charles brought Mia to visit Daisy. The hospital's corridor smelled of antiseptic and wet fur, but Mia tried to ignore the stinging odor, focusing only on the joyful promise of seeing her beloved dog again. Daisy lay on a soft pad, and the fourth drip attached to her front paw, her eyes half-lidded. Yet when Mia approached, Daisy's ears lifted ever so slightly, and a gentle thump of her tail sounded against the pad. Tears welled in Mia's eyes. She reached out and placed her hand on Daisy's side, feeling the rhythmic rise and fall of her breathing. Warmth radiated from Daisy's coat, an unspoken reassurance. Mia remembered the times Daisy had protected her even from small things like a spider in her room or an imaginary monster under the bed. And now Daisy had done it again, shielding her from a real venomous threat. The gravity of that sacrifice was not lost on Mia. Dr. Ramirez appeared in the doorway. "She's showing signs of improvement, though it's slow," he said softly. "Her appetite is returning. She even took a few bites of her food this morning. That's a very good sign." Over the next few days, Daisy gained strength little by little. By day 5, she could stand briefly on her swollen leg without whimpering. The staff carefully changed her bandages, applying ointments that reduced inflammation. They continued to observe the potential impact on the puppies, performing ultrasounds to ensure that the unborn litter was still developing. As if guided by some higher resilience, the puppies showed no signs of distress. It seemed that whatever intangible force was driving, Daisy was also nurturing the lives within her. On the 7th day, Daisy was stable enough that Helena received a phone call telling her that Daisy could likely return home soon, provided there were no sudden setbacks. Dr. Ramirez recommended a quiet, stress-free environment for at least 2 weeks, with limited movement and plenty of rest. Antivenom had done its job, but Daisy's body would need time to recover from the trauma. Helena shared the news with Charles and Mia over dinner. Mia nearly jumped from her seat, squealing with delight. "When can we bring her home?" she demanded. "As soon as Dr. Ramirez gives the final." "Okay," Helena replied. a watery smile tugging at her lips. It might be just 1 or 2 more days. Those days crept by like an eternity, but finally they arrived at the hospital, hearts pounding with anticipation. Daisy appeared markedly better, her eyes brighter and her tail wagging with more vigor. Though her leg remained bandaged and tender, she seemed ecstatic to see her humans together. And if dogs could smile, Daisy's expression radiated pure joy. When Helena and Charles completed the discharge forms, the nurse handed them a set of instructions. Keep Daisy's leg bandaged. Administer medication to control pain and reduce infection risk. And bring her back for follow-up appointments to ensure both she and her unborn puppies were okay. With a gentle nudge, the nurse handed Daisy over to the family. Mia hugged her dog as best she could without jostling her leg, burying her face in the dog's warm neck fur. Daisy licked her cheek, as though saying, "I'm so glad to be home with you." On their way out of the hospital, Dr. Ramirez waved them goodbye, reminding them to call immediately if any complications arose. Helena thanked him profusely, tears glistening in her eyes. "You saved her life," she said. "We can never repay you." He shrugged humbly. Daisy did a lot of the work herself. She's a fighter, and I suspect she has more reasons than ever to keep fighting. Make sure she stays comfortable and calm. As they drove back home, Daisy curled up in the back seat, leaning against Mia, whose face was glowing with relief and happiness. The gentle hum of the engine soothed Daisy into a light doze, and in her dreams she was likely running through tall grass in the yard, feeling the wind against her fur, guarding her family from every danger lurking in the shadows. What no one had guessed, however, was that this mother Labrador, who had nearly lost her life protecting her human family, was on the cusp of an even greater miracle, one that would elevate her from a mere family pet to a symbol of unwavering resilience and love. Life, it seemed, had woven an extraordinary tapestry of events that would soon unfold, leaving everyone awestruck. When the minivan pulled into the driveway, the late afternoon sun cast a warm, golden glow over the modest home. Mia could barely contain her excitement. She dashed out of the vehicle, opened the back door, and coaxed Daisy with gentle words. Charles helped lift Daisy carefully, mindful of her bandaged front leg. The Labrador's paw pads touched the familiar gravel of the driveway, and she inhaled deeply, savoring the smells of home fresh grass, damp earth, and the faint remnants of Helena's garden flowers. Helena opened the front door, stepping aside to let Daisy inside. The soft hum of the living room lamp, the faint aroma of lavender from Helena's homemade candles, and the plush cushions of the old couch welcomed Daisy like old friends. Mia raced ahead, rearranging the throw pillows to make a comfortable spot for Daisy, but Helena stopped her gently. "Sweetie, Daisy needs to rest. Let's set up her bed on the floor near the fireplace." Together, they laid down Daisy's favorite blankets, quilted, thick layers that had absorbed countless memories of cold winter nights and cozy naps. Daisy, still weak, limped slowly, gingerly lowering her body onto the makeshift resting area. Mia stroked her head, whispering sweet nothings as Daisy's tail gave a small, yet determined wag. Charles placed the bag of medications on the kitchen counter. Helena pulled out the veterinarian's instructions, spreading them like a map of Daisy's path to recovery. "Okay," Helena announced, scanning the notes. "We have painkillers twice a day, antibiotics once a day, and a weekly checkup to make sure her leg heals properly." Mia looked up, concerned. "Will it hurt her?" Helena smoothed her daughter's hair affectionately. "She might be uncomfortable, but that's why she needs us. We'll take good care of her." Over the next several days, the family adapted to Daisy's new routine. Mia woke early each morning, helping Helena administer Daisy's medication by tucking pills into small scoops of peanut butter, Daisy's favorite treat. Though Daisy was in pain, she eagerly licked the peanut butter from Mia's fingers, swallowing the medication in the process. The look in Daisy's gentle brown eyes seemed to convey gratitude. Each day that passed, her legs' swelling reduced and the wound site showed signs of healing. Neighbors visited, bearing homemade dog treats and get-well-soon cards. One especially poignant gesture came from Miss S. Taylor, who lived across the street. She delivered a batch of homemade biscuits shaped like little hearts. "For your sweet girl," she said softly, her eyes glistening with empathy. Daisy, half asleep in her bed, lifted her head and gave a sleepy lick to Mia's hand as a thank you. Despite her lingering fatigue, Daisy displayed a powerful maternal instinct, not just for her own future puppies, but also for Mia. Whenever Mia was near, Daisy would try to perk up, as if reminding the world that she was still Mia's protector. On quiet afternoons, Mia would lie beside Daisy, reading fairy tales aloud or simply telling the dog about her day at school. Occasionally, Daisy would nuzzle Mia's side or rest her chin on Mia's leg. Meanwhile, Helena and Charles worked tirelessly to ensure Daisy's environment was as stress-free as possible. Helena took a leave of absence from her teaching position, using her saved-up sick days to be home. Charles rescheduled his library shifts, shifting to fewer hours so that one of them was almost always present. Every day, Dr. Ramirez called to check in. His reassuring updates about the puppy's development, based on the most recent ultrasound, indicated they were still strong and growing. One evening, Mia dozed off on the living room floor beside Daisy. The television played softly in the background, some family-friendly show that no one was really watching. Charles gently lifted Mia into his arms, preparing to carry her to bed. But as he looked down, he saw Daisy watching him, her eyes reflecting a deep awareness. In that moment, Charles felt an indescribable bond, with the dog a companionship that transcended the usual dynamic of a pet. Daisy had sacrificed her own well-being to protect Mia. Any doubt about how vital Daisy was to their family evaporated in that silent exchange. After Charles tucked Mia into bed, he returned to the living room. Daisy's eyes were half closed, her breathing steady but shallow. He sat down on the couch, leaning forward to rest his elbows on his knees, studying the Labrador intently. "Thank you," he whispered into the stillness, uncertain if Daisy could fully grasp the words. Yet as if in response, Daisy's tail gave two gentle taps against the floor, and so the nightly routine took shape. The family would gather around Daisy, speaking to her in soothing tones, ensuring she was comfortable and praising her for every bit of progress she made. Days trickled by in a peaceful, almost sacred calm, each day bringing a small but meaningful improvement. Yet beneath the surface of these calm waters, a grander story was brewing. The maternal nature of Daisy, her near brush with death, and the unborn puppies still fighting alongside her, it all built toward a crescendo that would soon reveal the true extent of this remarkable dog's resilience. As Daisy's health steadily improved, her family felt a renewed sense of hope. Yet, the road to recovery was not entirely without setbacks. Each day, Helena and Charles remained vigilant for potential signs of complications: fever, excessive swelling, or unusual discharge from the bite wound. Although the swelling had subsided significantly, the skin around the puncture marks remained tender, and Daisy still limped. A critical juncture arrived when Daisy began to show signs of restlessness. She would whine in the middle of the night, not in pain necessarily, but out of discomfort and an inexplicable urgency. Initially, Helena assumed it might be due to the pregnancy or after effects of the antivenom. But when Daisy started panting heavily and pacing back and forth, albeit slowly, given her injury, Helena grew concerned. Another checkup with Dr. Ramirez was promptly scheduled. The veterinarian examined Daisy carefully, listened to her heartbeat with a stethoscope, and performed another ultrasound. Mia, standing beside Helena, clutched her mother's hand tightly, anticipating bad news. Dr. Ramirez furrowed his brow. Her vitals look stable, he said, but her stress levels seem elevated. It might be hormonal changes due to the pregnancy. Helena exhaled, momentarily relieved. So there's no immediate danger? Not at the moment, Dr. Ramirez replied. But we should keep a close eye on her. The venom and antivenom both could have lingering effects on her system, especially since she's carrying puppies. If her stress doesn't subside, it could lead to early labor or complications. The word complications echoed in Helena's mind, fueling a spark of anxiety. She resolved to focus on keeping Daisy as calm and comfortable as possible. They returned home with instructions to limit Daisy's physical activity, further no more pacing around the house, no following Mia from room to room. Daisy would have to stay in her cozy spot near the fireplace with short, supervised walks to the backyard for bathroom breaks. Implementing these recommendations proved harder than expected. Daisy, though outwardly calm, had an increasingly restless spirit. Each time Mia left for school in the morning, Daisy would let out the softest of whines, as if anxious about her young charge being away. It was a profound reminder of Daisy's protective nature, a bond forged by years of devotion and sealed by a heroic act of selflessness. One drizzly afternoon, Helena felt Daisy's tense energy. Rain pattered against the windows, and the yard outside glistened under a grey sky. The house was eerily silent, devoid of the usual chatter and laughter. Daisy repeatedly rose and lay down, circling her bed like an unsettled spirit. Helena closed the book she'd been trying to read, a biography of real-life dog heroes titled "They Also Serve Stories of Courageous Canines" from the Brookhaven Public Library, and knelt by Daisy's side. "What's wrong, girl?" Helena asked, stroking the dog's ears. "You have to rest." Daisy stared back with soulful eyes, as though trying to communicate something beyond words. Helena felt a sudden, startling thought. What if Daisy is worried about the puppies? From that moment on, Helena paid closer attention to the signs. She noticed how Daisy's body tensed whenever she felt movement from within her belly. A few times, Daisy even let out a low, nearly inaudible moan, her eyes scanning the room as though in search of something or someone. Helena wondered if Daisy needed reassurance, not just for herself, but for the little lives she was carrying. That night, Helena prepared a small basin with warm water and gently massaged Daisy's paws. Hoping to soothe her, the Labrador's breathing slowed and her tense muscles seemed to relax. Helena hummed a lullaby Mia loved as a child, a gentle, melodic tune that filled the living room with a peaceful ambience. Daisy's eyelids grew heavy. For the first time in days, she appeared calm, dozing off without that anxious quiver that had haunted her rest. But unknown to the family, events were in motion that would bring them face to face with another challenge, one that would truly test the depth of their love and resolve. Life had not yet finished presenting them with obstacles. The furious snake had been only the first adversary. Now, the complexities of canine pregnancy, entwined with the residual effects of venom, threatened to unravel Daisy's tenuous progress. Through it all, an unspoken question lingered in Helena's mind. How far would Daisy's maternal instincts carry her through this ordeal? And were they, as her human family, truly prepared for what might come next? The call came at 2:14 a.m. on a Thursday, jolting Helena and Charles awake from a deep sleep. It wasn't from Dr. Ramirez, but from the late-night technician, Melissa, at Brookhaven Animal Hospital. She sounded urgent, her voice threaded with concern. "Miss S. Hallie," she began, addressing Helena, "I'm sorry to call so late, But Dr. Ramirez asked me to check in on Daisy's post-bite status tonight and gather updated information. How is she doing right now? Helena sat up in bed, blinking away the fog of sleep. Charles hovered behind her, worry blooming in his eyes. She was restless earlier, but she's asleep now, finally, Helena replied. Why? Did something come up in her blood tests? Melissa hesitated. We compared the new blood work you brought in 2 days ago with her previous results. There's a concerning spike in her white blood cell count, and her clotting factors are slightly off. Doctor Ramirez is worried about the possibility of an underlying infection or some autoimmune reaction triggered by the venom. Helena felt her stomach drop, but she seems better, at least physically. She's walking more steadily. Should we bring her in? I recommend it, Melissa confirmed, her voice gentle but firm. We can run more in-depth tests and keep her overnight for observation. I know it's late, but the sooner we address this, the better for her and her puppies. Helena thanked her and hung up. Turning to Charles, she felt tears gathering. We have to take her back in. They're worried about her blood work. Charles nodded, already throwing on a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt. Within minutes, they had Daisy carefully loaded into the minivan. Mia still asleep in her bedroom, blissfully unaware of the night's urgency. Helena felt a twinge of guilt at leaving Mia behind, but it was better for her to stay home with a neighbor safe from the stress and potential heartbreak if more bad news was to come. The drive felt surreal. The streets of Brookhaven were empty, lit only by sparse street lamps that cast long, distorted shadows. Daisy lay in the back, breathing heavily. She seemed aware that something was happening, but offered no resistance. When they arrived, the hospital parking lot was mostly dark, except for the bright lights shining through the large glass windows of the emergency entrance. They rushed inside, where Melissa and another technician, Aaron, helped guide Daisy onto a gurney. The Labrador whimpered softly, her eyes darting around in confusion. Doctor Ramirez soon emerged from a side room, still wearing scrubs printed with little paw prints. He looked as if he'd aged several years in the last few hours alone. Thank you for coming in, he said. Let's get her into the exam room and run some tests. Helena squeezed Charles's hand, and they followed Dr. Ramirez down a long corridor. The hush of the night draped the hospital in an eerie stillness, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional bark or whimper from another patient. Once Daisy was settled, Dr. Ramirez ordered a series of blood tests, a more detailed ultrasound, and even a specialized scan to check for any internal swelling or fluid buildup. Hours crept by as Helena and Charles paced the waiting area, taking turns petting Daisy through her anxious whines. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking a relentless march toward dawn. In these suspended moments, Helena's mind reeled with memories of the snake attack, Daisy's heroic act, and the terrifying possibility that all their efforts might be undone by some hidden complication. Finally, Dr. Ramirez returned, his expression guarded. He gestured for them to sit in a small consultation room. We found some signs of a mild infection, he began, referencing the lab results. It's likely in the tissue around the bite wound. The venom may have compromised the area more than we initially thought. We'll start her on a stronger antibiotic regimen. Helena opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Charles asked for her, "What about the puppies?" Dr. Ramirez pressed his lips together. The ultrasound suggests the puppies are still viable, but any infection puts stress on Daisy's body, and that stress can impact them. We need to be very careful. I think she should remain here for at least a few days so we can monitor her 24/7. Helena let out a tremulous sigh, glancing at Charles with a silent question. They both nodded. Of course, we'll do whatever it takes. After finalizing the arrangements, Helena bent down to kiss Daisy's head. The Labrador looked up with eyes that seemed to say, "I'm trying." Helena could almost feel the internal war raging inside Daisy's body, the venom's lingering curse, the new infection, the pregnancy, and her unwavering desire to remain strong for the family she loved. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of lavender and peach, Helena and Charles returned home, exhausted and heavy with worry. They found Mia awake and panicking, having discovered Daisy's absence. Helena explained everything gently, hugging her daughter tight, promising that Daisy was in the best possible care. The next few days stretched into an agonizing blur of phone calls and short visits. Daisy's infection responded slowly to the new antibiotics. At times her fever spiked, and Dr. Ramirez worried the puppies might be in distress. Yet, miraculously, each ultrasound confirmed that all of Daisy's unborn pups still had strong heartbeats. The tension in the hospital corridor was almost tangible each time Helena and Charles showed up. They'd hold their breath as they peered into Daisy's kennel. Sometimes they found her lying still, eyes closed. Other times she'd lift her head, sniff the air, and manage a faint wag of her tail. It was a dance between hope and despair every single day. Mia, staying behind most of the time, channeled her anxiety into artwork. She drew pictures of Daisy with a beaming smile, wearing a little superhero cape. She even made a poster that read "Welcome home, Daisy and babies," in bright, glittery letters. Helena couldn't bear to explain the precariousness of Daisy's situation to Mia, so she simply patted her shoulder and said, "Daisy will love this, honey." Yet amidst the swirl of fear, heartbreak, and uncertainty, something miraculous was unfolding, a testament to life's unwavering determination to continue, even when faced with unimaginable odds. By the end of the week, Dr. Ramirez had extraordinary news. Late on a Friday afternoon, Helena and Charles walked into Brookhaven Animal Hospital with the usual knots of anxiety tangling in their stomachs. They had come to expect only incremental updates. Daisy's fever is slightly better today, or we're adjusting her antibiotics again. The emotional roller coaster was almost unbearable, but they pushed forward for Daisy's sake. This time, Dr. Ramirez greeted them with a wide, genuine smile. It was such a stark contrast to his earlier looks of concern that Helena felt her heart lift immediately. "Her infection is responding well now," he announced. "The fever has dropped, and her white blood cell count is returning to normal ranges." Helena felt tears spring to her eyes. "Are you sure?" Dr. Ramirez nodded firmly, leading them to Daisy's kennel. There lay their beloved Labrador, visibly more energetic than in recent days. Though she was far from fully recovered, her leg remained bandaged. Her eyes still betraying fatigue, there was a renewed vitality in the way she perked her ears and tried to lift her head when she saw them. Helena crouched down, reaching through the kennel bars to pet Daisy's muzzle. Daisy licked Helena's fingers in greeting. Charles exhaled a shaky breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That's our girl," he murmured, voice quivering with relief. Dr. Ramirez invited them into a small exam room, and a technician gently guided Daisy onto the table. "We'll do a final ultrasound to confirm everything is stable," the veterinarian explained. As the cold gel touched Daisy's belly, she tensed for a moment, but soon relaxed under Helena's reassuring touch. The grey and white images flickered onto the monitor, revealing the distinct shapes of tiny canine fetuses, a sight both mesmerizing and heartwarming. Each one had a strong, rhythmic heartbeat. "They're fighters, just like their mother," Dr. Ramirez said, with a hint of awe in his voice. "I've seen pregnancies lost under far less traumatic circumstances. It's amazing they're still doing this well." Helena swallowed back the lump in her throat. "So, is she out of danger?" Cautiously optimistic, Dr. Ramirez clarified. "She'll still need close monitoring, but she's turned a significant corner. The infection appears to be under control. If everything continues like this, we might be able to send her home in another few days." Even Charles, who was often the practical realist of the family, couldn't keep his emotions at bay. He wrapped an arm around Helena and gently brushed Daisy's fur. "We can't thank you enough." Dr. Ramirez shook his head. "Thank Daisy. She's the one who refused to give up." The next few days were a whirlwind of cautious optimism and final checks. Daisy's leg, though still tender, showed clear signs of healing. The pain was managed well, and the swirl of new antibiotics kept the infection at bay. Each updated blood test offered more good news. Meanwhile, at home, Mia fashioned a cardboard castle for the expected puppies, decorating it with crayon-drawn turrets and hearts. She placed soft blankets inside and even cut out windows so the puppies could look outside. Helena laughed at the sight, her heart warmed by her daughter's imagination. "Let's save that for when they're old enough to explore," she suggested. But Mia insisted on keeping it in the living room for Daisy's grand return. And return she did. On the 10th day after her midnight emergency, Daisy was finally cleared to come home. Dr. Ramirez insisted on weekly checkups until her due date, and Helena and Charles agreed without hesitation. For Mia, who had been waiting with near palpable excitement, the sound of the minivan door sliding open was like music to her ears. As Daisy stepped gingerly into the house, Mia shouted, "Welcome home, Daisy!" She ran to hug her dog, but Helena intervened gently. "Careful, honey. Go slow. She's still recovering." Mia nodded, kneeling down at Daisy's level, tears of joy brimming in her eyes. She extended her hand, and Daisy sniffed it before placing a tender lick on Mia's palm. The next few hours were a blur of relief, celebration, and watchful care. Helena ensured Daisy had a warm spot near the fireplace with fresh bedding. Charles grilled chicken, Daisy's favorite treat, and cut it into small pieces. Mia sat cross-legged on the floor, offering Daisy bits of chicken, piece by piece. Delight lighting up her face with each gentle bite Daisy took. Yet, within this celebratory homecoming, no one forgot the gravity of Daisy's ordeal. The copperhead's venom had nearly claimed her life, the infection had threatened to do the same, and the unborn puppies had miraculously survived both storms. Daisy's resilience stood as a testament to the power of love, both canine and human. The Halley family might have rescued Daisy countless times with medical treatments and unwavering support, but in truth, Daisy had rescued them, too, teaching them about courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bond of family. As the weeks rolled on, Daisy's pregnancy progressed. The entire Halley household buzzed with anticipation for the upcoming arrival of the puppies. Helena read every resource she could find, including official guides from the American Kennel Club and Dr. Ramirez's special notes on canine pregnancy. Mia displayed a fascination for the miracle of life, asking endless questions about how puppies grew inside Daisy's belly. In the meantime, Daisy herself seemed to glow with an almost regal calmness. Her bandages were removed, revealing pink, healing skin over the scarred bite area. Though it would leave a permanent mark, it had become a badge of honor, a reminder of her sacrifice and endurance. Each day, Daisy moved a bit more confidently around the house, sometimes limping slightly, but overall showing remarkable improvement. Dr. Ramirez jokingly dubbed her his supermom. Whenever Helena or Charles guided their hands gently over Daisy's belly, they could sometimes feel tiny kicks or shuffles from within. This small yet profound sensation left them breathless. Mia, too, placed her ear against Daisy's side, whispering, "I can't wait to meet you," to the unborn pups, as though her words might drift into their embryonic dreams. In the quiet evenings, the family often gathered on the living room floor around Daisy, discussing potential names for the future puppies. Mia pushed for whimsical names like Sparkle, Rainbow, or Princess Paw. Charles suggested names inspired by famous libraries or authors, while Helena eyed more classic dog names. The friendly debate became a cherished routine. As Daisy approached her due date, Helena prepared for the birth with military-like thoroughness. She stocked up on clean towels, puppy formula just in case, and even installed a baby monitor near Daisy's bedding to keep track of any late-night changes. She also set up a whelping box, a safe, comfortable space where Daisy could give birth without fear of accidents or disruptions. One evening, Helena spoke quietly to Charles while Mia slept in her room. "I'm worried," she confessed. "What if the venom or the infection caused complications we haven't seen yet? What if there's something wrong with the puppies when they're born?" Charles squeezed her hand, meeting her worried gaze. "We're doing everything we can. Daisy has been a warrior through all of this. We just have to trust that everything will be okay." Helena nodded, her heart still anxious but filled with hope. After all, Daisy's story so far had been one of defiance against all odds. The mother Labrador had already conquered near-fatal obstacles. If any dog could deliver healthy puppies after such adversity, it was Daisy. Dr. Ramirez scheduled a special checkup a week before her due date, performing one final ultrasound to assess the puppy's positions. He confirmed that there were 4 pups, all appearing normal in size and alignment. Daisy behaved calmly throughout the examination, her composure testament to the steady, nurturing energy that had always defined her. "She's a remarkable dog," Dr. Ramirez said, stroking Daisy's head. "In my career, I've seen many extraordinary recoveries, but Daisy's got something extra, a spark, a will to live that's rooted in pure love." Helena couldn't have agreed more. When she gazed into Daisy's eyes, she saw not just an animal, but a soul brimming with devotion and quiet strength. It humbled her to think of how close Daisy had come to dying, how the entire family had teetered on the edge of heartbreak. Now, hope glimmered like a warm sunbeam cutting through winter gloom, and so they waited patient, vigilant, hearts full of faith. Each day, Daisy grew heavier, more introspective. She slept longer, yet remained alert to Mia's presence. If Mia entered the room, Daisy would lift her head, tail wagging slowly, as if to say, "I'm still here for you." No one in the Halley family could anticipate just how dramatic the big day would be. The birth would arrive shrouded in a cloak of late-night drama and an unspoken question. Could Daisy, still recovering from her brush with death, summon the energy required to bring new life into the world? It happened around 2:00 a.m., almost the same witching hour that had once brought dire news. This time, however, the house was hushed in a different kind of tension. Helena stirred awake to the sound of faint whimpering. At first, she thought it was a dream. Then she heard it again, more insistent. She shot up in bed, heart pounding, and reached for her phone to check the time. Scrambling out of the bedroom, she rushed to the living room, where Daisy's whelping box stood. The lamp's soft glow illuminated the scene. Daisy lay on her side, panting heavily, eyes wide and alert. She let out a short bark as Helena approached, as if to say, "It's time." Charles, awakened by Helena's rush out of bed, soon joined, flicking on a nearby floor lamp for better visibility. Mia, too, appeared, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "What's happening?" she asked, voice quivering with excitement and fear. "Daisy's going into labor," Helena answered, trying to keep her voice steady. She knelt beside the whelping box, gently touching Daisy's head. "It's okay, girl. You've got this." Daisy let out a soft groan, followed by a ripple of contractions across her abdomen. Helena had watched countless videos on canine childbirth and read numerous articles, but none of that prepared her for the visceral reality of seeing Daisy struggle. The Labrador's eyes glistened with pain and focus, yet she remained composed, drawing on the primal instincts that had guided mothers of all species for millennia. Mia hovered close, her hands over her mouth. Charles tried to usher her back, concerned the sight might be too intense. But Mia refused to leave. Daisy protected me. I want to be here for her, she insisted. Charles relented, guiding her to a nearby seat where she could watch without being in the way. The first puppy's arrival was both swift and miraculous. A tiny bundle of life emerged, slick and trembling, guided gently by Daisy's own instinctive nudges. Helena reached in with a clean towel, wiping away membranes so the pup could breathe. Daisy began licking vigorously, stimulating circulation, while Helena and Charles hovered like worried nurses. Mia gasped, tears brimming in her eyes, as she saw the pup draw its first breath. "It's so small," she whispered, voice shaking with awe. Daisy continued to pant, her attention oscillating between licking the newborn pup and bracing for the next wave of contractions. Helena marveled at the motherly instinct emanating from Daisy, so much strength in a body that had been nearly destroyed by venom and infection only weeks earlier. Within another 20 minutes, the second puppy arrived, another wriggling miracle. Daisy repeated her maternal routine: tear open the sac, lick the puppy clean, stimulate breathing. Helena assisted where needed, mindful of letting Daisy lead the way. By the time the third puppy was born, Mia's tears had become a steady flow of wonder and relief. Charles held her close, feeling a surge of paternal protectiveness and gratitude. This was life at its purest, messy, raw, profound. The final puppy took longer, almost an hour, prompting Helena to fret. Daisy's contractions eased, and for a moment, Helena worried there might be a complication. Daisy glanced at Helena, a hint of distress in her eyes. But with a final, determined push, the fourth puppy entered the world, squeaking softly as Daisy quickly tended to it. When it was over, Daisy lay exhausted but triumphant. 4 tiny Labrador mixes snuggled close to her belly, searching for warmth and the nourishment of their first meal. Helena and Charles exchanged glances of sheer amazement. Mia approached gingerly, kneeling beside the whelping box. "They're beautiful," she whispered. Helena counted 10 perfect minutes. Not one of the puppies showed any signs of distress. Each had a healthy cry, latched onto Daisy, and started nursing. Daisy, for her part, cleaned each pup meticulously. The scene was almost surreal, an image of complete devotion and unity. Charles placed a hand on Helena's shoulder. "She did it," he murmured. Helena nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Yes, she did. Somehow, after everything." A hush fell over them as they continued to watch. The only sounds in the room were the soft whimpers of newborn puppies and Daisy's gentle breaths. Mia, mouth parted in astonishment, reached out a trembling hand. One of the pups, eyes not yet open, squirmed in her direction as though drawn by her presence. That night, the Halley family bore witness to an event so simple, yet so profound, it redefined their understanding of courage and love. Daisy, the mother Labrador who had faced a furious snake and a fight against venom, had not only survived, she had given the gift of life to 4 healthy puppies. In the quiet that followed, Helena realized one truth that would stay with her forever. In the face of adversity, the power of love and resilience can transcend even the greatest obstacles. Daisy was living proof of that, and the 4 squirming puppies were a testament to the awe-inspiring force of life that refuses to be extinguished. Sunlight gradually replaced the shadows of the miraculous night. By 7:00 a.m., the Halley household was still wide awake, riding a wave of adrenaline and overwhelming joy. Daisy remained in the whelping box, surrounded by her newborns, each one nuzzling for warmth and nourishment. Mia refused to leave Daisy's side, her eyes sparkling as she witnessed the puppy's tiny tongues and minuscule paws kneading at their mother's belly. Helena decided to call Dr. Ramirez to share the joyful news. The veterinarian, who had walked this entire journey with them, reacted with unfiltered excitement. "I'm proud of Daisy," he said, "but I'm just as proud of all of you. You supported her through every trial." Later that morning, Dr. Ramirez himself dropped by for a house call, an unscheduled favor, just to check on Daisy and her pups. He examined each newborn, carefully observing their breathing, their reflexes, and their coloration. "They're in excellent shape," he concluded, "a testament to Daisy's strength and your vigilant care." Helena couldn't stop smiling. Charles brought out a tray of coffee and fresh pastries for everyone, a small token of hospitality for the dedicated veterinarian. Dr. Ramirez, sipping the coffee, gazed at Daisy and the puppies with genuine affection. "This is one of those times," he said softly, "that reminds me why I chose this career." Mia beamed at him. "I want to be a vet one day, just like you," she announced, her voice brimming with determination. "I want to help animals who are hurt or sick." Dr. Ramirez patted her head. "You'll make a wonderful vet, Mia." In the following days, life in the Halley household took on a new rhythm. Nights were punctuated by the soft squeaks of puppies. Daisy required extra nutrition, so Helena prepared nutrient-rich meals, often incorporating chicken broth and boiled rice. Charles rearranged his library shifts to be home more often, double-checking Daisy's comfort and the puppy's nursing schedule. Mia, for her part, acted as a self-appointed puppy nanny, diligently observing each pup's personality as it emerged. They named the puppies collectively first, the Fantastic Four, though each would get an individual name as their unique traits blossomed. By the end of the first week, the Halley family settled on. Sunshine for the boldest pup, who always vied for the best feeding spot. Clover for the calm and observant one. Simba for the slightly larger male pup, whose mewling was the loudest. And Pearl for the runt who clung lovingly to Daisy's every movement. Daisy, meanwhile, showed no signs of lingering venom effects. Her bite wound had mostly scarred over, leaving a small patch of hairless skin on her foreleg. Dr. Ramirez believed her complete recovery was nearly certain, given how well she was adjusting to motherhood. The lab results confirmed her system had cleansed the infection thoroughly, and her body had adapted perfectly to nurturing her puppies. One evening, about 3 weeks after the puppy's birth, Helena found herself staring at Daisy, who was curled on the living room rug, nursing her brood. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, and the glow illuminated Daisy's fur, giving it a silky sheen. Helena thought back to the early morning of the snake attack, how that day had started. So ordinarily, how a single moment of violence had set off a chain of miracles. She realized that the entire experience had changed her. She felt braver, more grateful, and more in tune with the fragile beauty of life. Watching Daisy clean and cuddle her puppies, Helena saw a magnificent act of daily courage that required no fanfare, just love, dedication, and instinct. Charles joined her, placing an arm around Helena's shoulders. "She's amazing," he said, voice filled with reverence. Helena nodded, her eyes moist with emotion. "She really is." They stood there in silence, letting the scene speak for itself. It wasn't long before word spread through Brookhaven about Daisy's incredible story. Neighbors, friends, and even local reporters showed interest in meeting the heroic dog who survived a venomous snake bite while pregnant, going on to birth 4 healthy puppies. Many brought treats or small gifts for Daisy and her pups. Mia proudly recounted how Daisy had saved her life, leading to many exclamations of astonishment. Though the Halley family never sought the spotlight, they welcomed people's warmth and curiosity, knowing that Daisy's story might inspire others to appreciate the bond between humans and animals. Real compassion, real bravery, it transcended species, boundaries, and hardships. Eventually, talk arose about whether they would keep all 4 puppies. Some families in town expressed interest in adopting them, but Mia insisted they find homes that would love them as much as we do. Helena and Charles agreed. While they couldn't practically keep all the puppies, they would ensure each pup went to a household that valued them as family. Still, those decisions would come later. For now, their home was brimming with life and the sweet scent of puppy breath. Daisy had accomplished the impossible, from a brush with death to the miracle of new beginnings. Nothing captured the essence of the Halley family's transformative journey more than the image of Daisy lying contentedly amidst her little ones. Her scar an emblem of survival, her eyes shining with the warmth of unconditional love. A faithful mother Labrador who had faced down a furious snake and emerged, unbelievably, with 4 tiny hearts beating beside her. Thank you for sharing this unforgettable journey with us, a story that began with a startling snake attack on a brave, pregnant mother Labrador named Daisy and ended in a heartwarming miracle of new life. Through venom and infection, fear and hope, Daisy triumphed against all odds, embodying resilience, unconditional love, and the unbreakable bond between animals and the families who cherish them. If Daisy's bravery and the precious arrival of her puppies touched your heart, we invite you to like this video, share it with friends who need a reminder that miracles can happen, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of inspiration. Your support helps us continue bringing uplifting stories like Daisy's to light. Together, let's celebrate the extraordinary power of hope, compassion, and the simple, profound joy that comes from the love of a faithful friend.